I would say if you're struggling with stack, slow down and really think about it every time that you go to play a minion. It is very easy to speed run that and shortcut the positioning because there are not a lot of decks that care to this extent. And it is a skill that is very useful long term. Like, this is a very good deck to teach you really good fundamentals, but it is also very punishing if you are not paying attention to those things.
Welcome to episode 540 of Concede, a Hearthstone podcast dedicated to making the competitive side of the game more accessible to you. It is Friday, April 3rd, 2026 in the evening. Coming to you from Teldrassil, California, it's me, Megasa. From Northrend, Massachusetts, we have Wicked Good.
Hi.
As you may have noticed, I am not Edelweiss. Unfortunately, Edelweiss is not feeling well this week. Having a toddler in school exposes you to a lot of bugs, so we hope she can rest up and feel better. For preview of news, we keep doing this to you, Wicked. Winter Championships, which will be not next weekend as we're recording, April 10th through 12th. But from all around the world, we have you, dear listeners. This week's episode is brought to you by our producers, Number Theory, Kresh, Beef Squatch, David P., Jeremy T., Bottlecap, Scrumpy Monk, The Burger Club, Kirk Regan, May, NY Kiwi, Spine, and by our patrons of the week, Raymond Lirag and Lacey Geiger. You can go to patreon.com/CoinConcede to get perks like a thank you at the top of the show, bonus post-show content, early access to new episodes, and help support the show in the process. If you would like to support the show but cannot do so monetarily, please consider leaving us a 5-star review on your podcast feed of choice. Always helps other people find the show. We had so much bonus content last week, though.
Yeah. You have like 2 hours of bonus content last week if you subscribe to the Patreon. So you get at the $5 tier, you're going to get the pre and post show content, and at the $10 tier, you get an extra bonus like mailbag episode a month that we do just for the $10 and up patrons. So there's a lot of extra content that is there that you will want to get your hands on if you are not already. So go check that out. And link will be in the show notes as usual.
Yeah. Well, Life and Ladder. We won't bury the lead here. The nerfs came yesterday as we're recording this. So just with that context, Imbue Druid got quite a hard nerf. Shaman got like a very minor nerf. Gladiatorial combat got nerfed. We'll talk more about all those details and things that got buffed as well. But what have you been doing so far with that, Wicked?
I have been pretty busy. Passover started the last 2 nights, so I haven't had much time to play because I've been at my parents' house doing Seders, and this past weekend I was at PAX East. So that was exhausting, but a lot of fun. I got to meet up with Andrew from HS Replay for a little bit. I got to just kind of walk around, and one day was with the kids, one day was by myself. I got to meet some of my daughter's college friends, which was interesting. They're good kids. They're good kids. Yeah. But you know, I mean, my daughter's a lot like me, and she attracts the kinds of friends that you would expect a nerdy college freshman would attract. We'll just say that and leave it at that. It is complimentary. And I did play some cards while I was there. I played a Magic collector booster Chaos Sealed draft event, which not draft, just sealed. It was pretty pricey, but it was the kind of thing where I figured it was an experience, and like I rarely travel, so like this is my splurging on myself, because it's a weird, like usually in a sealed thing in Magic you'll get like 6 booster packs, and there's like maybe 1, maybe 2, if you're really lucky there's 3 rares in the pack. In a collector booster there's 5 each, so it's just people throwing bombs at each other for the entire thing. And I found out from Schwal, well, I checked with Schwal. I knew this seemed wrong, but I checked with Schwal afterwards because I'm like, does this sound right to you? Because they gave us, normally you get like an hour for deck building, and they gave us half an hour, which is barely enough time to open the cards, see what you got, and sleeve them, let alone like build a deck. So everyone was basically like, well, I put a bunch of cards and land together. Hopefully this does something. But it was was a lot of fun. It was a bunch of weird stuff. But I spent the last week basically just playing Shaman. I was playing Priest for a while after I got myself to Legend. And then I decided that I was tired of donating MMR. And I played Shaman for the last couple of days of the season. Got myself up to, like, I don't know, 3,500, I think is where I ended. 3,500, something like that. And then I've just been kind of taking it easy since the month rolled because it's just been Passover. So I'm still in, like, I don't even know, like, silver. I've played very few games because I just haven't had a whole lot of time. But I'm looking forward to seeing what the actual meta is like now that Imbue Druid is dead and it's not Long Live Imbue Druid. So that's been my week. But how about you, Megasa? What have you been playing?
Well, nothing so exciting over the weekend. I will say I was really close to 11x. Could have been in. I don't know exactly where the cutoff was this month, and you never really know. But I knew that if I was in top 1K, which I was close to, that I could get it. So I played some Imbue Druid. Sorry. It is a fun deck. It was just a little too good and a little overplayed. So I did manage to be just at the end of top 1K. And then, like, during the week, the early part of the week, I had a lot of things going on. I've just started the sort of practicum portion of my grad school program. So I needed to line up my students for that pronto and all of that kind of thing, which is a little awkward because it's not like fitting a semester of school. I think we're there, though. So I played a little Imbue Druid, got 11x, and then with the patch and the month rollover, I've been playing a combination of Shaman, which we're going to talk about more in Decksplanations, and Priest. I guess I will say my most sort of disgusting game with the Shaman was that I was facing a spell DH who had me on the... No, this particular one was not a spell DH. This one was a Marithra Druid, which I had not seen before the patch. They actually got Marithra, which is the new legendary dragon, that if you've spent 25 mana while this is in your hand, then you get a full hand of 1-cost dragons. That actually is a huge board very quick. And they had so many dragons that they had a couple of those. And I only survived because I had a random tsunami off of Witch's Apprentice. So that helped me there.
Typhoon, you mean?
Typhoon.
Yeah.
I do mean that. Which is usually a worse card than Tsunami, but in this case was a better card than Tsunami because I needed them all gone. It was like, repackage at home. So I played the Typhoon. Then I was down pretty low health. I knew they probably had me. And then I had played Xavius the last turn, though, and gotten Alakir with charge. And had made sure that turn also to equip the weapon with 5 attack. So that was 40. Plus I had 1 minion on board, which was just enough to kill them, exact lethal. So they were probably salty. I don't know if I would have accepted a friend request from them if they had sent it then. Although I usually do accept them because often it's listeners of the show. Maybe I would do... some people have mentioned, like, I know World 8 says this is what he does. He waits 10 minutes and then accepts, because only the most dedicated of flamers still want to flame you 10 minutes later instead of flame whoever else they just lost to. So with the Priest, I managed to go 6/6. Sometimes I was using the buffed cards, which are Moonwell and Blackblood. Sometimes I wasn't. I was trying to figure out different things with the list. I'm not sure that means, oh, it's an even deck now, though, because it's a small sample size, and some of those wins were pretty hard fought. It was fun. It was definitely scratching that control itch, and we'll see if anybody can refine this into playability or how the meta turns out. But like, the overall stats are not looking... They're looking better for Control Priest than they were, but still definitely not tier 2. So we shall see, but I did have fun with it. But then we were going to talk about Shaman, and I switched to Shaman, and I have had better success with the Shaman. But the Priest, I think, is close-ish. It just felt like there were too many games where you didn't quite have the tool that you needed on the turn when you needed it. So the Imbue can help, but sometimes it doesn't get you there. Sometimes you don't have enough time to play Atiyesh and then get your killing them down. Or Medivh is just like a turn too late. But you can heal a ton with this deck, and that is satisfying. And we do have a lot of control tools. It's just I don't know if we're quite there yet. We will have to see. But yeah, overall, have had a pretty good time past the patch. There's definitely more stuff I want to play. I just didn't have a ton of time and wanted to play Shaman before we talked about Shaman. But Spell DH does seem like it's the spooky deck right now. We're only looking at this with a little over 24 hours of data. But so far, Spell DH is looking like the best deck right now. But Herald Shaman is definitely up there. And if I look at like Diamond through Legend, Dragon Warrior, there's sort of an aggressive sort of paladin that's doing pretty well. But things have definitely shaken up. Face Hunter, I'm glad that they did not nerf Face Hunter. I don't know if that was ever in the consideration, but like Face Hunter didn't need it. It's playable now. I wouldn't have wanted it to be any worse than it is, because I think we do need that aggro deck in the meta. So it's not the only aggro that you can play, but I think we do need that in the meta. But
yeah, it's interesting. I'm just looking at the popularity stats on HS Replay, and it looks like I don't really believe this, because I'm looking at like last day, and the patch launched more than a day ago, and it's still saying like Imbue Druid 33.5%, which
switch to the Hearthstone 35.0.3.
Yeah, even that is like has it at like 17.9%, which is people trying to see if it's still good. That's more than people's trying to see if it's still good after the patch. So
I wonder if it's including, Diamond 1 is pretty high for that, but I wonder if there's just people who just like kind of don't even really pay attention and just jam whatever they were just jamming, you know?
Yeah, that doesn't happen at Diamond 1 usually. That would happen lower. I would expect that to be lower, and it's like higher, still higher. So I don't know if it's just like we're a day out and we haven't really seen what it's actually going to look like yet, but yeah, Imbue Druid's pretty well and truly dead, but all of the popularity stats haven't necessarily caught up with to show us what's going on right now.
Yeah, I've definitely seen some Herald rogues, even though I don't think that that's like super strong. I did lose to Jay Alexander on it, barely.
That's
but
that's definitely an outlier anyway.
He's an outlier on that. He also plays extremely fast. Like, I actually play a lot faster than I probably should, but he was just like whipping those cards out, even the like randomly generated spells from Sinestra. So
yeah, it does seem like, if I'm looking at, I guess if I look at past 6 hours on HS Guru, it looks like it's no minion DH is like 23%, Herald Rogue is 25%, and Shaman's 12%. Which, this is a subset of even like the HS Replay numbers, because you have to opt into HS Guru's, I don't know if it's a plugin or what that he's using to track the popularity, but yeah, none of the long and the short of it is that none of us know what the hell's going on with the meta right now, but Imbue Druid isn't it. That's all that we needed to know.
Imbue Druid isn't it, and we're quite confident that even though it did get a couple small hits, Shaman is still good. Shaman is likely to remain good. And the experience of playing it is still pretty similar to what it was before the patch. So we feel pretty confident in giving you some advice on how to play Shaman well. It's a fun deck. It's pretty well positioned. And So we're finally at the point in the expansion cycle where instead of just talking about like the meta in general, the cards in general, we can really focus in and give you a deck guide, which I'm excited about.
Yeah, we would have done that last week, except we knew a week out that Imbue Druid was going to get nerfed because they tweeted it. Like, not even like a creator program thing. Like, they said outright. They tweeted with an axe and a tree, right? Like, that was pretty clear. Like, that's you don't have to think too hard about it. So we didn't really want to go into how to play Imbue Druid and then have it just be dead a week later. So now we can actually talk about a deck that's in the meta. But first, before we do that, we've already talked about the nerfs, so we may as well talk about the nerfs.
Gadgets and Gazette always gets the scoop.
So as we have alluded to, because we do nothing if not bury the lead in or spoil the lead. I don't know, something the lead.
I've been doing that
something
the
journalism.
past couple weeks.
We did have a balance change yesterday, as foretold by the tweet from the Play Hearthstone team, with changes to both standard and wild. This is more wild changes, since we just got a bunch of wild changes, which is unusual. And we will get to that. We may not be able to speak in a lot of detail about what the hell's going on there, but you can kind of use your imagination. But anyway, so the dev comment is, well met, with Cataclysm now live and standard freshly rotated. We've been closely watching the new standard environment take shape as you experiment with a wide range of decks and strategies. With the meta still evolving, this patch focuses on reining in a few clear outliers and giving a small boost to some budding archetypes. As always, we will be keeping a close eye on how these changes land and look forward to seeing how the playing field continues to develop. So with that, Hamul Rune Totem, the villain of the piece, has gone from imbuing your hero power every 2 spells you cast to imbuing your hero power every 3 spells you cast. This is a ginormous change.
Yeah.
It was already nerfed once when it was first released, from going from 1 to 2, now going down to 3. It means that even like the spell generation doesn't have as much of an impact, and it's going to take a lot longer to get the imbues up to a reasonable point. You probably have to run all of the imbue cards, including the neutrals, which not all of the decks were running. Generally, they didn't want to run a neutral, a 2-mana 2/3 and a 4-mana 4/4 Taunt Divine Shield. The 4 drop is okay. The 2 drop is real bad if you don't need to run it. And none of the decks were. They would have to run that, which means they're taking out some of the cards that would advance the game plan, which also don't advance the game plan quite as well. There are other changes on top of it just to make sure that it was going to stay dead. But and it's not that necessarily all the imbue decks need to die, because obviously they did give out all the cards from Into the Emerald Dream and Lost City of Magoro for a reason, but this was way outside the bounds and very easy to build and didn't really have any clear weaknesses, so it needed to get hit on multiple fronts, and this is the biggest one of them.
Yeah. I think they really, like, this hits Imbue Druid specifically, and the other 2 changes that we're about to talk about maybe a little bit more for also Token Druid. But yeah, I think Imbue Druid, somewhat unfortunately, like, I think it would have been better if the patch window had been previously set to be earlier. Then we might not have had to nerf Imbue Druid so hard, because it wouldn't have been so big in the meta, although they wouldn't have wanted to under-nerf it either. But they set these patches like timing well in advance, and sometimes in the past we felt like they have nerfed too soon, and so we wanted to, I think perhaps they wanted to make sure that they gave the meta a little time to develop this time. Just unfortunately, nothing was able to rise to counter the top deck, which often normally it would. So, but they can't change that quickly. And we already talked previously about why they probably didn't ban Hamul. But the change is here now. If you were not playing because you were annoyed about Imbue Druids, I have not seen a single Imbue Druid.
No. It has been very, very... Nature is healing, as one might say. So, Crystal Spine Cub that was the 1 mana 1/2 that whenever you spend your last mana crystal, gain +1/+1. That has gone down to a 1/1. What this means functionally is that if you play this and then are able to immediately, like if on turn 1, you're able to go cub, coin, 1-drop, which is the way that you would be able to get it buffed up on turn 1, it will not live through a static shock, which is a big deal. Because normally the way that you would counter this is if they just tempo it on 1 and then can't follow it up, you could static shock it and then hit it with your face. But if they've managed to buff it once, then it's a 2/3, and the health is really what keeps it spiraling out of control. So it's going to be a lot easier to remove, especially with things that you're going to have access on turn 1 and 2, which was harder before. So this is going to make it a little bit easier to just deal with and not let it spiral out of control to the point where you just can't do anything about it.
Yeah, lots of things have like early minions with 2 attack, or even just like a Shadow Suffusion from Warrior. I do wish we had more data on, like, it doesn't seem like there's enough people playing Token Druid to even know if that's still good.
Yeah.
But this card definitely was something that could be a little bit like the 2 mana 1/4 that they Stone Carver from Warrior that they just nerfed, where like if they got the turn 1 location into turn 2 Stone Carver and then pinged it, and then they had a 5/5 on the end of turn 2, and then it just spiraled out of control. I don't think Crystal Spine Cub was nearly that egregious, but it could sometimes. If you couldn't deal with it in the early game, then you just never dealt with it again, and then that was the game.
I mean, even just having like one minion that you couldn't deal with just started to snowball and could create a problem that way. So that's another change. And then the other major change is Wildwood Circle, which is the Shatter card for Druid, which says Shatter, summon 2/2/2 Treants, give your minions Death Rattle, summon a 2/2 Treant. That is going from 3 mana to 4 mana. That is a welcome change. I think all the other Shatter cards cost 4. This is the one Shatter card where, I mean, I don't know about the one Shatter card, but it is unusual among Shatter cards where you don't mind paying 3 for either half. And even in Imbue Druid, it was actually better to do that in some cases, because then you get an extra spell proc. So bringing it up to the same level as the rest of the Shatter cards seems to make sense. And it should be awkward to play the halves. Like, that's the whole point of the Shatter cards, is that they get stronger when you're playing it together. And going from 4 mana to 8 mana is a much bigger difference than going from 3 mana to 6 mana. So I think this is a welcome change, and that's the other reason that Imbue Druid is taking a big step back, because it just doesn't have that sustain as easily to be able to fit in either the board presence or the Death Rattle. And certainly when you get to play them both together.
Yeah. I do. This was a change that I definitely was kind of looking for, although, again, we don't really have enough data to really say whether the Token Druid is dead now. I do hope that the Token Druid is still playable. Imbue Druid, probably not, but we'll have to see. This card, though, was really, really, really strong.
Yeah.
So I'd almost rather see other things brought up, and this one balanced back a little bit.
Yeah. I mean, it was Power Crept Soul of the Forest. And Soul of the Forest was already a really good card. So, yeah, Power Crept Soul of the Forest, I don't think is something we needed in the standard that we're in the state that it's in right now. So, and the dev comment for this in standard Druid has stood out both in popularity and power, and it's been warping the meta. To address this, we're taking a more comprehensive approach by adjusting several key cards. These changes are aimed at toning down Druid's ability to dominate both the early and the late game. It sure does seem like it did that. So that's fine. The one change that was made to Shaman, or no, 2 changes that were made to Shaman. Skywall Sentinel, which is the 2 mana 0/3 elemental with taunt and battlecry Herald Alakir, is going from a 0/3 to a 0/2. And Flight of the Firehawk, which is the fire spell that says draw 2 minions of different types. It used to say give them +2/+2. Now it says give them +1/+1. These are both smaller changes, but noticeable. The Witch's Apprentice in particular is a card that you generally will draw off of Flight of the Firehawk, because it's one of only 3, maybe 4, 3 unique, 4 total minions that have a minion type that isn't elemental. So you're very likely to draw Witch's Apprentice. The other ones are Ultraxian and Xavius. So Xavius is a demon, which is the kind of thing you forget until you draw it off of Flight of the Firehawk.
Yep.
So, or you get it off of Kill Jaden, but that's not a thing anymore. So having that be a 1/2 is a big difference from having it be a 2/3, and just like the other elementals getting a smaller buff does mean that they snowball a little bit less and they trade a little bit worse. So it does bring that down a little bit to earth. Again, this is not to the degree that of the Druid nerfs, but it is still I've been doing a little bit worse with Shaman today, and I haven't paid attention to how much this has been affecting it, but I wouldn't be surprised if I were to start that I would feel this a little bit more than I would have expected to.
Yeah. I think, Shaman still seems to be doing pretty well, which says to me that these changes probably were needed. But yeah, the Flight of the Firehawk one, I actually feel a little more. I guess I've played more of this after the patch. Definitely the Sentinel, the taunt is a little bit easier to clear, so that then you're a little bit less likely to then be able to stick your soldier behind it. But it's still a very good card. It's still a mulligan outlier. You absolutely are keeping that and throwing it out onto. If you have it, you're looking for it. If you don't have it in your mall, it's still a very good card, and not just because it's Herald and you need to get your heralds going. And Flight of the Firehawk, I think, absolutely also does stay in because it's draw. It does still give a boost, and Witch's Apprentice is still better as a 1/2 than it is as a 0/1. But that I think was the main part that I noticed the most. The other things not being buffed as much, I didn't notice as much, but you do notice the Witch's Apprentice particularly. Yeah. I almost wonder, I'm looking at lists for the Shaman on HS Guru, and there's one here that only has one of the Wailing Vapor, which is the 1 mana elemental. After you play an elemental, gain +1 attack. I wonder if that's correct, because I feel like I'm often kind of underwhelmed by Wailing Vapor. It is something that they try hard to kill, but we're not getting that with as much of a boost off of the Flight of the Firehawk. Maybe it's still worth it though, because it does still work well with the little 1/1 rushies.
Yeah, I also kind of wonder if it's worth going back to. Ike had a all-in elemental that was running. I forget what the name of the spell is. That it's like a 4 mana spell that deals 4 damage, gives your elementals +1/+1. I wonder if it's worth looking for maybe some different draw than this. I mean, it is still 3 mana draw 2, buff the minions, but Witch's Apprentice is a lot less good as a 1/2 than it is a 2/3, and I do wonder if it's even worth, or it might even be worth cutting the Witch's Apprentices potentially, and then just using this to draw Xavius or Ultraxian guaranteed. That might be a thing. I mean, the thing that was really good about Flight of the Firehawk with the Witch's Apprentices is getting to play a 2/3 on curve when you're playing this, or behind this when you're playing this on curve, right? Because you would pay 3 mana, you get a 0 mana 2/3, you get a spell, and then you'd still have a minion that actually mattered. The 1/2 matters a little bit less. It is still a taunt, so maybe that's still good enough. I'm not sure.
It is still a taunt. Every once in a while you get an impactful card off of it, because there is a pretty good spell list in Shaman. But I would also like to see people experimenting with some more options, and we'll definitely keep you notified on that. If we have, I'm seeing Healing Rain in some of these lists.
That seems a little out of place, but I've also seen some Lightning Storms in some lists that may make more sense. It depends on what you're facing, I guess.
I switched to one that has 2 hexes and 2 Lightning Storms. And I like the Lightning Storms. They're good in the mirror early, and they're good against sometimes some of the early spell DH boards, some of the dragon boards. So I was actually pleasantly surprised by the Lightning Storms. So I think there's definitely some, and we'll talk about this in Decksplanations, there are some flex cards and some possibilities that might be worth looking at there. But so far people are still playing a pretty similar list to still pretty good success. So if there's more refinement that happens, that'll only help Shaman further.
Yeah. And the dev comment is Shaman is also proven to be a strong presence, though not to the same degree as Druid. Here we're taking a lighter touch by shaving some power off a couple of cards to keep the class in line as the meta continues to evolve, which, that seems to be the way that it went. Shaman's still very playable. And then Gladiatorial Combat, which is the spell that says, for Warrior, that says summon a random minion for your deck. Summon a 5/5 Tiger with Stealth from your opponent, is going from 5 mana to 6 mana. The dev comment. For Gladiatorial Combat, this adjustment is less about raw power and more about play pattern. While it's not been a major outlier yet, we want to proactively curb a style of gameplay that can become frustrating when it ramps into large threats too quickly. So the play pattern here was, this deck was running exactly 3 minions. It was running Yasandra, which is the dragon that summons a dragon, summons a number of dragons equal to the number of times Yasandra's died. When it dies, it was running the Great Dracorex, and it was running Tortola. And any one of those is fine. I do kind of wonder why we printed this card if we don't want to ramp into large threats too quickly. Because we've had this in the game before. I forget what the name of the card was. But there was a 6-mana spell that just said recruit a minion in Kobolds and Catacombs. And that was what you did with it. You played very few minions. You played big ones that you wanted to cheat out, and you cheated out the minions. We had this also with Chemspell. I'm not sure. I agree with a lot of the design decisions that they've made in this set and the last. Printing a card like this, what else do you expect it to do? Because that's the whole point of the card. I don't know why we make the card if we don't want people to ramp into large threats quickly.
I wonder if they just think turn 5 might be a little too fast, but I do agree this is the kind of card that enables a play pattern that can be fun, but also very frequently frustrating quickly. So I wonder if just those 3 things just countered the 5/5 Tiger with Stealth too well, or what. But it's also something that was a little bit I know there are some people who are disappointed with this change because they were having fun with the deck, and I definitely get that. It was also something that was kind of polarizing though, because either you had a way to deal with the Tortola or you didn't. And that's decks where it's I cheated one thing out, you have a way to deal with it, you wait, or you don't, done, can be a little frustrating.
Yeah. I mean, if they want to print it and they don't want, then they need to put something on it. If your deck started with X number of minions, right? If your deck started with 10 minions or something, I don't know what it looks like. I mean, that's kind of what they had to do with Kazakhstan. If your deck started with however many dragons, then do this. I don't know, but I think it's a good change. I think that deck was going to get very annoying very quickly, but I'm surprised. I don't know what else we're expecting this card to do, because it seems like it's, it's like the scorpion and the frog. That's its nature, right? I don't know.
Yeah.
And then we got some buffs. So we got a buff to Maniacal Follower, which is one of the Herald cards for Rogue. So it was a stealth 3/1 with Death Rattle Herald Sinestra. Now it is a stealth 4/1 with Death Rattle Herald Sinestra for 3 mana. And then similarly, Obsessive Technician, which is one of the Herald cards for Death Knight, is a 4 mana Battlecry Herald Onyxia with Lifesteal. It's going from a 2/5 to a 3/5, which helps a little bit with, given that Onyxia wants you to pay health for the minions that the Heralds generate, especially when she is not on the board herself to turn that life cost into life gain. Being able to heal up a little bit more does help a bit. This was very good in the pre-release brawl when we still had access to a lot of the life gain mechanics, and really now all you have aside from Onyxia herself is just leeches, and that just doesn't do enough to be able to get you out of the danger zone. I have seen some Onyxia Death Knights today, in the few games I got to play before the stream, and they seem better. I don't know if they're good, but they seem better. So
I'll agree with both halves of that.
Yeah. We also got some buffs to priest cards. Yay. So Moonwell, which is the spell from Into the Emerald Dream. It was a 7 mana spell that said deal 4 damage to all enemy characters, restore 4 health to all friendly characters. That now goes to 6 mana. And the Black Blood got a couple of buffs. So the body went from a 4/8 to a 5/9. I will read that for you because you probably don't remember what the Black Blood does because you've never seen it. The Black Blood is a colossal +3. After you restore health to a character, it attacks a random enemy minion, and then it has 3 pieces of its body that all say at the end of your health, restore 3 health. At the end of your turn, restore 3 health to a random damage friendly character. So at a minimum, the Black Blood attacks 3 minions, assuming that there are 3 minions on board, because each one of those will go off at the end of your turn. So the Black Blood itself is getting +1 attack, and then the pieces of the body went from 1/2 to 2/2, so they are also getting an attack buff just to make them a little bit less embarrassing when they're left on the board after the Black Blood is done.
And it definitely does, like, the Black Blood having an extra health makes it a little more likely to survive all of its hits, even if some of the heals go to your face, and having an extra attack makes it actually, like, have a reason to run this, maybe with or instead of Moonwell, because it actually deals with 5 health instead of just 4. So that I think does help. I don't know if Black Blood is good enough even still. I did feel a lot better when I played with it. I think Moonwell might still be better than it, although it's somewhat situational. And it is just a little bit of a tight list to fit things into. But I almost, it would be too good if the Black Blood body itself had lifesteal, but I keep thinking that the body itself has lifesteal and then being disappointed when it doesn't, like the main one.
Yeah.
Like none of them have lifesteal, but it does restore some health. The only thing is it doesn't necessarily restore health to you. So you have to keep that in mind. Whereas Moonwell is a little bit more predictable as to exactly what it's going to do.
Yeah. But also, it only does it once, and it's still pretty slow.
Right. They do have to clear the Black Blood on the back end. They have to clear the bodies as well. Now, if they have any AoE, then they clear the bodies. But and often the main body survived, so then they have to clear that too. Otherwise, it'll keep doing it.
You probably played some cleansing clerics, so it's healing you more. If it heals you up to full, then it starts healing the Black Blood. Or it just happens to hit the Black Blood with a heal, which is also fine.
And I did discover that if you use the Ruby Sanctum to, quote, heal but actually damage your opponent, that does count as a heal and the Black Blood will attack something.
Oh, that's pretty good.
So, or if you heal yourself, so if you do other heals on the turn that you play that, or it survives for some reason, then it will also attack. It's not just its body's heals that it will attack for.
So, and then we had some changes for wild. So Light Speed, which is the 2 mana spell, holy spell for priest with give a minion +2 and +1/+2 and rush. It used to say repeatable this turn, and now it says echo. I believe that the echo, what is the difference between that and echo? I think
cannot
it's
go less than 1.
Right.
So the difference is echo follows the Bodicus rule. It cannot be reduced to less than 1. And so the issue is that I guess there must have been a deck in Priest that was reducing light speed to 0, and then it's just however fast you can go. You can play it infinitely many times. Or if you're, that also would encourage animation hacking. So now you will be mana limited with this spell. You can reduce it to 1, but you can't reduce it to 0 and just play it infinitely many times until the rope goes out.
So they also, Astral Communion getting nerfed was not on my bingo card. This is a very, very old card. It is it was a 4 mana. It's going up to 5 mana arcane spell. Gain 10 mana crystals, discard your hand. So I think from what I understand, the problem with this is Ysera, like Ysera from Into the Emerald Dream, because now that you can go above 10 mana, you can play this and maybe that's not it. Or no, you could, that's right. You could play this and then was it you could play Ysera? I don't know. I don't remember what the problem is, but it's bad. Whatever. Oh no, because if you started with Ysera, you can go above 10 to start with. That's what it is. Right? So you're playing this on 4 and then you go up to 14 immediately, whereas you were capped at 10 before if you didn't have Ysera in your deck.
And I guess their dev comment says that it's grown more consistent over time. I guess that there's just been more cards that allow you to kind of do it's like Quasar, right? You've discarded your hand, but then if you have certain things that allow you to immediately draw in your deck, then sometimes it's just a non-game. So I think that's probably what that was. I don't really play Wild, so I haven't seen this myself in the wild, as it were, but that would be my understanding.
Yeah, I'm surprised it took this long, because this is a card from the Grand Tournament. So I remember trying to play this card in Standard years and years ago. I think it was a Tice video that baited me into playing it, if I remember correctly, because I think Tice this sounds like a Tice thing that would have happened back in the day, that he would have figured a way to break Astral Communion and get everybody else in the world to like donate MMR by trying to play it. And then Grand Magister Ramath, which is a 9 mana 5/7 that used to say recast each spell you've cast this game that didn't start in your deck. They have added the once per game tag to it, because I could see them finding ways to do that over and over again, and I could see that being really, really frustrating. So that seems like a pretty good change for the Wild players. There are, as usual, there are a bunch of Battlegrounds changes. We are not going to detail them because there are a lot of them. They are numerous, and we are not equipped to have that conversation with you. The one major bug fix or a game improvement, I guess this is more of a game improvement because it's not really a bug fix. You will now be allowed to play health cost cards that cost more than your remaining health if you have Arisen or Nyxia active. So this is a safety that's in place normally, that if you're going to play a card that allows you to pay health, you can't pay more health than you have. You can't unalive yourself by paying health. However, when you have Arisen and Nyxia active, you're paying health, but you're actually gaining it, but it was still treating it like you were paying it. So now it's not treating like that anymore. You can still play them, which the number of games I lost in the pre-release brawl to this, even after knowing that it was a thing, was embarrassing. So this is another good change for the Nyxia deck, which also might be why I've been seeing more people testing it. It's kind of a niche case, but it's not really, because sometimes you just get beaten down and you need that to save you, and it's not going to.
I would think that actually probably happens not infrequently in that deck. Now, have I played that deck? Absolutely not. But I do run into opponents playing it. And I think it is something that is unintuitive the way it was working before.
Right.
And it does actually say on the card, you gain health instead. And that instead really suggests as well that it should work this way, that it's not paying life at all anymore. So I think this is a good change.
Yeah. I mean, if it is worded as a replacement effect, it should behave like a replacement effect. Otherwise, it should say that after you've paid the health, gain twice that much, which is is not nearly as clear what the hell is going to happen when you do it, but is more accurate to what was actually happening.
Yeah. So. You know that a change was needed if it helps blood decay, and I'm in favor of it. So.
Yeah.
All right.
So
we actually have more news.
Yeah, we do have actually more news that we've also already spoiled, but Winter Championships are going to be this coming weekend. So Friday, April 10th to Sunday, April 12th, starting each day at 8 a.m. Pacific, which is 11 a.m. Eastern. If you are in the one true time zone, it is
5
it's
p.m. Central European.
yeah, it's 4-deck best of 5 conquest with a band double elimination. Day 1 is groups A and B. Day 2 is group C and D. Day 3 is top 8, which is single elim and with a third place match. So there is a $50,000 prize pool, and the top 3 competitors will qualify for Worlds, which is why there's a third place match as well. You can get drops. There is 1 Cataclysm pack per day that you can earn by watching on Twitch. There is a choose your champion. It is live now, and so you want to go to the post on the Hearthstone website page, which we will have linked from the show notes, and go choose it, and you'll get a pack just for voting, and then you can get more packs if you choose wisely. There will be people co-streaming it. In case you're worried about, I mean, we've kind of gotten past the point where we're worried about how many people are watching esports for its continued survival, but they do count all the co-streamers' views along with the main stream's views. So if you want to watch a co-streamer who's doing it, that's perfectly fine. If you're worried about that. And our own Edelweiss will be casting along with Lorinda, Raven, Soddle, and Pocket Train, who is casting and not playing in this one. So, I mean, Pocket Train's been a really great addition to the casting crew.
Yeah.
So I think that's, it's always good to root for Pocket Train, but also I actually have to make a decision with Choose Your Champion this year, because whenever Pocket Train's in, I just choose him. So that's an actual thing that I'm going to have to choose. But I don't think we're going to enumerate all the players. You can go look at the post to see who's there. There are some new faces. We have some players from I guess we're guaranteed to have some players from Americas, but we do have some players from South America, which is not, I don't feel like we've had as many players from South America of late, so I think that's a good change. And yeah. we'll see what happens but do make sure to watch. No matter where what stream you're watching, just do make sure to watch and make sure to claim your packs, because they're free packs. Why wouldn't you want them? What's wrong with you?
And we actually know well enough to be able to tell you in advance of it happening, even if you're not listening patron early. So, the esports team has really been doing a good job with promotion and all of that kind of stuff.
Yeah. And then finally, we got an Inside the Tavern video from the Hearthstone team. So we had Tyler Bierman and Edward Goodwin, better known as Gallon. And then Ryan, did I catch Ryan's last
Ryan
name?
Hickman.
Ryan Hickman, who's he's involved in basically everything that's outside of actual card design, so modes and events and things like that. So this was a really interesting discussion, and one of the things that I think we've talked about more than once on this show is kind of how we've been looking for something from the game director talking about like the lessons that they learned over the past year and giving us some insight into what they're doing differently, especially after last year was what it was, to give us an idea of like where things are changing and how they're looking to correct course. And this was actually that, and I was really happy to see that. We were kind of waiting for that. We kind of felt like we hadn't gotten that, and I'd honestly not been expecting it, but this is a really good kind of retrospective on what they've done for this set, as well as what they did, where they missed the mark on the last couple sets and how they're correcting it, which is really, really welcome.
Yeah. I think this is worth watching. There's also some previews of things that they're going to be doing going forward, but really especially, it is a corporate video, but there was a lot more sort of reflection in it that I was expecting to have in this kind of video. And so, for example, in terms of standard design, They talked about how having both quests and Imbue back to back, they felt like that was too many sort of quote proscriptive strategies to have in a row in an expansion. And certainly the balance that they did around Imbue and quests seemed kind of ambivalent, because on the one hand they printed them, on the other hand they were, as we've talked about, the quote parasitic strategies are not necessarily a bad thing, but to have like 2 whole sets where every class is based around this, or many of the classes, then that's challenging. So they're saying that Herald is the only proscriptive strategy this year, and the rest are more quote player driven, by which I think they mean more like across the timeways, where they're trying to make good cards that do synergize with each other, but it's not so much like, oh, clearly we're building a Herald deck or a Blink deck.
Yeah.
They also talked about, they did say tuning on the side of strong, so launches feel better. That's maybe not an exact quote, but a close quote. Also talked about how neutral legendaries have been overstaying their welcome or overplayed, such as Fyrak and Elise, which are cool cards, but not when you see them in every single deck. So they actually talked a decent amount about having neutrals be more in not how you're winning, but it might help you define a strategy, like Vironoth, for example. Although that card hasn't really been very good, but I do think it's a good example. And then putting more power back in class win conditions and class identity. I think like something like the Priest, I think the current Priest we have is really strong on class identity. I wish it was just a little stronger in terms of power, but it's close. It really has that Priest class identity, and I think they do have some of that going for some of the other classes as well, trying to get that class identity. And the more that you have things like healing only in some classes and stuff like that, it does make the classes feel a little bit more different. And we've been talking about how like the powerful legendaries need to be class legendaries for like ages.
Yeah.
So,
and also like the fact that the Priest is as close as it is actually kind of reassuring, right? Because they're going to print more cards for Control Priest. Like it's gonna happen. So if it was already oppressive right now, I think there wouldn't be anywhere for it to go. So the fact that we're where we are with it in the first set of the year, just after rotation when we lost a lot of things, I think is actually very good for that. And it's probably good that it's not yet like a viable deck on ladder. Just
people
because
do get very mad when Control Priest is really viable.
Yeah. So
hashtag delete Priest.
And it's the kind of thing like I enjoy playing a deck like that when I can be good with it and not everybody can, right? And I think that I don't think there's a lot of people who enjoy playing Control Priest. There are some. There are dozens of us, I'm sure. But it's not like if it's the deck that you have to play because it's that good, that's when everybody hates it. I think when you can play it and it's really bad, but the people who are really like it will get good enough at it to win with it, that's when it's kind of in its best place. And I think we're pretty close to that, honestly, which is really all you could ask for, because we haven't been anywhere in the ballpark for a long time. And then they'll print a couple cards and maybe it becomes a reasonable thing to take onto ladder and not be embarrassed. And that's really all I ask of it, to be honest.
Yeah. And honestly, I hadn't realized that I kind of missed that from my early Hearthstone days. A decent percentage of my like 42% of games in the history of Hearthstone that I have played is Priest or something like that. I found that stat. A decent chunk of those were actually Control Priests and like Inner Fire Priests from back in the day.
Yeah.
So
it also has a win condition, right? Like it's not like you're just sitting around waiting for them to die or or like fall asleep out of boredom. Like you actually do have a way to end the game with this Priest, which is also good.
Yes, that is also good. And I found when I was playing at post-patch, the, 12 games that I played, I was actually winning the game more often like with my win condition, whereas I felt like pre-patch, if I won, it was because I ran them out of stuff.
Yeah.
Half the time. Whereas this time it was like, oh, I'm actually I like need to like use my win condition. So Shaman is still rough because Shaman can end up with so much attack that it starts to overwhelm even the lot of healing that we have. But it's feeling like, okay, you can play with this if you really want to play with it, and that's definitely different. They mentioned some stuff with Arena, saying they wanted to do more proactive balance. One interesting thing they said was bringing back dual class Arena to run more often and for longer with improved UI UX. So that's something that they've done like for really brief events, but that they're actually talking about bringing back, not necessarily like all the time, but for longer periods of time. And having more Arena exclusive cards. They did acknowledge like those wolves were a bit much, but they like the idea of Arena exclusive cards to connect the sets, make Arena have an Arena exclusive experience and be able to do balance that doesn't impact ranked. So those particular cards, if they aim them stronger, those are some of the stronger things. They can balance them without having to worry about like, but how does this hit standard, where they pretty much never balance things for Arena if they're in standard.
Yeah.
They talked about the pre-release Tavern Brawl. This was kind of an interesting thing where they said they're exploring a format change for the next expansion. They've been saying people want to have the new cards shine, but then what they didn't say, but you know, we've always talked about, they have this tension between we want to allow people who haven't pre-ordered to still play, but we want the new cards to be shining. So they've said rather than, they're trying to move away from a standard light format to a, quote, traditional sealed experience within the context of Hearthstone. So that means things like, some things that they mentioned, I don't know that they're promising they're going to do this, but like things that they mentioned as possibilities were reducing deck size or loosening class restrictions so that, quote, whatever cards you pull from your packs you can use. So that's kind of interesting. I think it's kind of interesting to be like, we want you to play with the new cards, but we're not developing standard yet. It's not standard yet.
Yeah. I don't know how I feel about it, to be honest.
Mm-hmm.
And they're just kind of spitballing here, so we'll just have to keep an open mind for whatever they end up showing, whatever they end up landing on. I do think that the pre-release brawl does need some sort of adjustment, just because it does end up being pretty well dominated by whatever you can build with the core cards and whatever was there from the last set that they haven't already banned out, and then they have to ban out a whole bunch of stuff after the first day, after they figure out what that is. And when they do that, then it feels like the free to play players feel like they can't participate, which it is an incentive for you to buy the cards. But also, if it's replacing Tavern Brawl for a week, and Tavern Brawl is a primary source of cards for a lot of free-to-play players, then that feels really bad. So they're juggling a lot of things. I would love for it to feel more like a sealed pre-release. If there's a way to do it, it's the thing with like, and I've done a number of of pre-releases in Magic at this point, and the thing with Magic is that you can generally build a functional deck because you don't have the hard like class restrictions that we do in Hearthstone. That's the main thing that kind of gets, and that, which is why they're talking about loosening them, which makes sense. I don't know how that's going to work outside of like a dual class type of scenario. But I'm glad that they're even thinking outside the box that way, because like you can throw together a really janky like 3-color deck in a sealed pre-release for a Magic set and you can be fine. Or even just like a 2-color deck, because there's only 5 colors and you can generally cobble together a pretty good 2-color or 3-color deck. If you had to build a monocolor deck, you'd probably be sad. And you're having to do that in Hearthstone, you're having to build a monocolor deck every time because of the way that it works. So I don't know what any of this means, but I'm looking forward to seeing what they come up with.
Yeah, I wonder if it might be, and this is just complete speculation here, but like you can pick any 2 or maybe even 3 classes to put together or something like that.
Yeah.
But then there's more restrictions on like having to have some new cards. I don't know. We'll have to see, but I do think they probably do need to think outside the box. So I'm glad they're thinking outside the box. We'll see what they land on. And we'll see whether we like what they land on. But I can see why they're like, if you restrict the cards anymore, that's a problem. But if you open them back up, that's a problem. It's kind of a problem either way. they've experimented with all different levels of that, so now it's time to go a little deeper.
Yeah. And it needs to be something where you can actually participate even if you opened up like a small number of packs. Right? Like
Right.
Even like my experience from the last one, like even with like having the big bundle, I only had like maybe 1 or 2 decks I was able to build with what I opened. And I can only imagine if you're a free to play player and you just opened up whatever you were opening them up like effectively one at a time. Like that's going to be pretty miserable, and you're just not going to get to play those cards all that often.
Yeah, because I think it serves a couple of purposes, right? Like it is an incentive to get the pre-order so that you can play those cards more early, but it's also trying to show off the new cards and get some hype from the player base as a whole. And they might also want, like, you start playing the pre-release brawl and then you're like, oh, I really want to play these fun decks. So then you go and get the pre-order. But then that still had a little bit of a problem that you might not open the cool legendary you need for that deck. Yeah. And maybe if there's like less class restrictions, it'll be easier to kind of homebrew with stuff.
Yeah.
We'll have to see.
Or maybe they let you craft like one legendary or something. Just like, oh, I really want to play with this one. Just let me have it. I don't know.
Yeah. Or they like lend you some, I don't know. Like they lent everybody Deathwing. They like, you can choose one legendary to have lent to you. There's lots of things they could do. So it sounds like they're thinking about it. They talked about, so they had mentioned before that mini sets will be replaced this year with class sets. And they mentioned kind of some of the same stuff we talked about with them, which was, right, that mini sets only give a few new cards to each class. This allows them to put a whole new archetype into the middle of an expansion. With a class set, they're going to hit every class over the course of the year. They didn't say exactly like which classes when or how many classes, but if there's 3 in a year, that probably means like 4, maybe 3 in a class set. Or like 4 or maybe 3 like classes in that patch. They said, they also talked about, which this was previously announced, that the card count for expansions is going back down to 135 by cutting neutral commons. So we knew that already, but that they are going to be adding more new event cards, including class cards, which is something they haven't really done that much in the past. It's always been neutrals. But I think this goes along with their like trying to have less in the way of neutrals and more in the way of class cards for especially really impactful cards. So they specifically mentioned wanting to help class identities and archetypes. They also talked about using events as a way to build a narrative through line and highlight different parts of the client. And they mentioned making event quests a little bit less restrictive. I definitely agree with that last part. And I like having sort of some new cards in the events at different points, although that can have, like, I hope it's not so many events that it's event fatigue, or that the events are not like so difficult to get through that it's event fatigue. And I guess that would be my main thing. The other thing is that it is a bit aggravating, as people are finding out with Sands of Time right now. If you miss the event, you do have to wait a while before you can get the card, which is an incentive to complete the event. But it's unfortunate right now for people who, like, Sands of Time is a card that's in at least one meta deck with Spell DH and also like Quest Mage and showing up in other places as well. So that's frustrating for people who have come back to the game for Cataclysm, were not playing when that event happened, and they're going to have to wait until the sort of next major patch, the 0.2 patch, in order to get that card. Although I will say, if you're like, oh, I can't play Spell DH because I don't have Sands of Time, it's a good card in that deck, but it's not like necessary. Like, you can play it. It's okay.
Yeah. But I mean, also people take breaks. Like,
yeah,
that is a normal thing for people to take a break from games occasionally. And the event should, accommodate that. So yeah, if that's going to be more, especially if these are going to be more impactful, that means that they're going to be more necessary. You're going to have to keep up with those events in order to do it. I think they do need to go into class cards in order to do more events and not go right back into the neutrals being, being everything that you see. So I think that's good. But if these event cards are going to actually be impactful, then yeah, you're going to have to keep up with those, and that could lead you to playing when maybe you ought not to be, which could lead to fatigue with the game. There's other risks there. We'll have to see how they balance that. But
yeah. And then lastly, they did have a little bit of discussion about, I don't know when they recorded this, but some of the things that they talk about made me think that maybe this was recorded before the expansion came out, and then they just didn't release it until now for whatever reason. That's pure speculation, but they mentioned cutting Shadow Step and Brawl and Corpse Explosion, especially Shadow Step. And basically said what they had said at the time and that we had thought was their rationale, which was, Gallon said, quote, Shadow Step is a really well-designed class card that has embodied Rogue's fantasy for many years, and that he expects Shadow Step to find its way back into core eventually, but that they, quote, want to try to explore some other foundational pillars of classes in Rogue, Warrior, and DK. So saying, like, in Rogue, you end up with Cycle Rogue, kind of being the main Rogue strategy. We've had several different iterations of that. And he actually, an interesting thing that he said is that they're going to try to aim for Miracle Rogue, I assume, in the next expansion, because it's like, Vanessa Van Cleef.
Yeah.
Something. So Miracle Rogue would make sense there. And that for Warrior and DK, they want to try to build some other types of AoEs. But they can't really do that when Brawl is there, because then you have too many good AoEs. I do agree with that in principle. I do know that people are understandably disappointed with Decimation for reasons that Edel laid out last week. In principle, though, I think, if you want to print different kinds of AoE and you can't because Brawl is there and then there'd be too many, like, I understand that. But it has been a little rough for the Warriors and the DKs. Not that I'm complaining about losing Corpse Explosion personally, but I understand. There are people who are not me in the world.
This is also a 4-set problem, right? Like, we have the fewest number of cards in Standard that we're ever going to have, right? And they will print more board clears. The problem when you start with Brawl in the pool is that if you print another one that is as good as Brawl, then you have Brawl for days, right? And then nobody likes that. It becomes too much. So, like, either you are printing clears that are significantly worse than Brawl, which why bother, or you're printing more things that are like Brawl, and then we have Brawl overload. So in order to be able to print different board clears that might be a little bit more situational, you have to get rid of Brawl, because otherwise, why are you going to play any of them? You just play Brawl. And if you're playing any of them, that means they're good enough that you're running all of those in the deck, and then nobody gets to keep a board, and then everybody complains that board-based gameplay is dead, and yada yada yada, and then we have discourse, and nobody wants discourse. So, yeah, I think it's fine. I think that I was disappointed to hear that they're thinking about bringing Shadow Step back. I was hoping that it would be dead for good, but that's just my own personal damage. But I mean, I think that, again, there is only so much that they can do in some sort of a Miracle Rogue with Shadow Step in if they want it to feel any different. Because Shadow Step has been a key part of it. And yeah, it's flavorful and it does what Rogue wants to do, but also you are giving Rogue access to 2 extra copies of any Battlecry minion in the deck. And you have to build around that. And maybe they can make a cool Miracle Rogue if they don't have to worry about whatever the key card is getting played 4 times easily. I mean, they still have the spider one and whatever, but you know what I mean.
Yeah. Well, Shadow Step specifically works well for like a cycle type aspect too, because it's 0 mana.
Right.
And it makes the thing that you take back be cheaper. Yeah. So it enables a different type of archetype. Now, he didn't promise they're bringing it back. He just said he would be surprised if they didn't eventually. So we'll see. It may depend on how things go this year.
Maybe the new
So-
Miracle Rogue will be so much fun without it that you won't even miss it and they won't have to bring it back anymore. I don't know. Maybe.
Yeah, maybe. Well, and
You won't
I
know
did
what
still
you're
get
missing
murdered.
with having a Shadow Stepless Miracle Rogue. Maybe it's the best thing since sliced bread.
Yeah. And I mean, Jalix is still out there murdering people. He had a Herald Rogue that also had Imbue in it and all kinds of stuff. But, all right, well, that was basically everything that's in the video, but it's still worth giving it a watch to kind of see how they say it, especially if you want to be like, who is the mythical game director?
Yeah.
I'm glad that he's showing his face a little more.
Yeah. And I guess we should point out that we did talk about the video for longer than the length of the video because I had it running on the stream and then it ended and we're still talking about it. So I think that means that we should probably go stop talking about how they're designing the cards and talk about the decks that we can play right now. And by the decks we can play right now, I mean Shaman.
All right, so as we already talked about a little bit up in Life and Ladder, we are going to be highlighting Herald Shaman. And I put a list into the show notes that is the one that I played today and yesterday. This is not the only list by any means, but this was one that was doing pretty well on HS Guru, although with a relatively small sample size, but it's not that different from all the other lists. So we'll talk about like what are those flex cards that you can play around with. So the core of this, we of course have the whole Herald Shaman package and Herald package in general. So your Herald cards are Ritual of Power, which is a 2-mana nature spell that says Herald Alakir, get 2 1/1 elementals with Rush. Those are in your hand. They're 1-mana 1/1s, but they're often more attack because you play them next to the Herald you just summoned. Skywall Sentinel, which we mentioned, got a buff, got a nerf, so now it's a 2-mana 0/2. Taunt, Battlecry Herald Alakir elemental, but it's still good. Don't worry about it. Then we have Envoy of the End, of course, which is the 5-mana 5/4 Taunt Herald Your Colossal, and Ultraxion, which is the Dragon, 6-mana 6/7 Battlecry Herald Your Colossal, reduce Deathwing's cost by 1 for each time you, and then it improves for each time you've heralded. So, and of course we have the Colossal Alakir. I'm sure you have seen Alakir by now, but he has Rush, Wind Fury. His appendages boost his attack, and you get 2 minions with cost equal to Alakir's attack. They cost 1, so if you fully heralded, then you get a couple 10/10s or 10 cost minions, and he has 10 attack and Wind Fury. And if you got him with Xavius, charge, but that doesn't happen very often. That was definitely lucky. And of course we have Deathwing. So that is one package, and Deathwing works really well with Muradin and High King's Hammer because your hero power says 2 mana, gain 5 attack, and the weapon says Wind Fury. So that's pretty good.
Plus we run Static Shock, which also buffs your attack. So you can get even higher than that if you need to, which you sometimes do.
And sometimes in the longer games, you might actually have this hammer, like have a couple cycles of the hammer, like Versa Priest or Versa Herald Decay. But you can, it keeps going back, right? So you have a lot of inevitability in this deck, and ability to put out quite a bit of damage. And even Muradin can be a threat, although one tip, in the mirror, make sure Muradin dies and gives you your hammer back. Otherwise, he's going to get hexed. So just keep that in mind. I have done that to an opposing Muradin, and they were not pleased. So there might be a situation where you're like, all right, they already played a hex. I really win if Muradin sticks, and otherwise I'm going to die. Like there could be a situation where you want to risk it, but in general, in the mirror, you should have Muradin die. Other classes, like, there's a small chance that a priest might have a cease to exist, but like probably not. But in the mirror specifically, you do need to worry about that transform effect.
The more likely thing is that the priest is going to play the spell that discovers a copy from your deck and theirs, and get your hex, and use your hex on your Muradin, which would be
that
very,
is actually
very
more
sad.
likely.
Yeah.
Which, by the way, if you are the priest and you play that card and you see the hex, think about it. It's also good on Alikir or one of their heralds at that point. So we have that inevitability in the late game. Deathwing, of course, also just like makes a 12/12 and is really, because he gives you 12 armor and usually clears the board, he's just a really good survival mechanism. So it can often be important to try to find, if you're getting beaten down, it can still be good to try to find an opening to play Altraxian. That can be a place where like Witch's Apprentice is still good, because that gives you like a small taunt to play with Altraxian or something like that. It's still good to find a time to play him, because then you can get that Deathwing down earlier, and that can absolutely save your bacon. So he's very good defensively as well as offensively. But we also have some early game with, like, so Twilight Egg is very good in this deck. Twilight Egg is the egg that the whelp that it summons when it dies gets +1/+1 at the start of every turn you've had the egg. Wailing Vapor is, I think, not nearly as good in this deck, but pretty much every list is still playing it. I might cut one of those and put in back 2 Primordial Overseers. This particular list only has 1. Most lists have 2. Primordial Overseer is the 2-mana battle cry if you've cast a nature spell while holding this, gain +1/+1 and draw a card. Which can be really nice unless you just like don't happen to have a nature spell in your hand and you instead you have 2 Primordial Overseers and then you just hate your life. So that was why
you do run a decent number of nature spells. You've got Static Shock. Generally, that's the only time you would keep Primordial Overseer or Static Shock in the mulligan, is if you have both of them together, because being able to Static Shock into a Primordial Overseer is like a 2-mana 3/4 plus draw a card on 2, which is really, really good. But so you have Static Shock, you have Hex. If you're running Lightning Storm, that's nature, and then Ritual of Power, which is the Herald spell, is a nature spell as well. So you don't have a ton of nature spells. You also can sometimes get some off of Witch's Apprentice. You don't get to choose, obviously, but sometimes it'll just bless you with one, and that'll also be helpful. But you also just need to be paying attention to if it's yellow or not, because like you can play it if it's not active, but you really don't want to if you can help it.
It's kind of I guess this is better than a hero power, but even then you might want to hold it in case you draw a nature spell. Like, it feels really bad to play if it's not active. But we can get a decent amount of sort of, I'm not often winning through the early board with this deck, but occasionally, and you can get some minion pressure with the elementals if you scale the heralds quickly. But mostly that board is kind of distracting your opponent, forcing your opponent to deal with it while you bridge into your really powerful sort of mid to late game with all of the heralds.
Yeah, it is important.
Sometimes you do just
but it is important that you're able to stay on board to the point where you can attack with your minions, because of Muradin's Last Stand, which is one of the strongest cards in the deck. It starts at 9. It get discounts for every time that you attack, which is either your minion or your face, and it draws you 2 cards. Being able to Muradin's Last Stand for 0 is incredibly powerful in this deck. It is generally the difference between winning and losing. And Muradin's Last Stand is either the best or worst card to have in your hand early, depending on what the rest of your hand looks like. There are some games where you're able to just build a board and play a Muradin's Last Stand for free on like turn 4, and you are loving life. And there are times when you are at 6 mana and your Muradin's Last Stand costs 6, and you wonder why the hell that card is in your deck. But it really, if you need to be thinking about how you just get extra attacks in, as much as possible. Sometimes it's just like blowing a static shock just to get an attack to make the Murden's Last Stand cheaper. And do pay attention to how many attacks you have on board before you plan out your turn, because you may make the Murden's Last Stand free, and that may change your play. This is one of the only scenarios where drawing last is often correct if it means that you're getting to draw last for free.
Yes. Like, this is a case where normally I think about what are all the cards I want to play, and then I'll attack with my minions at the end of the turn. If you have a Murden's Last Stand in hand, you're often attacking with all your minions at the beginning of the turn instead. There's also like subtle things like Avatar Form, which is part of the Fabled package, the spell that says give a friendly character +2 attack, and after this attack, deal 2 damage to all enemies this turn. I had a moment today where I realized I had slightly misplayed because I put that on my minion that attacked instead of my face. And if I put it on my face, that's an extra attack for Murden's Last Stand. Yeah. So it didn't end up being a deal breaker in that particular game, but it is something to keep in mind. Or you attack with things until it's 0, then you play it, then you keep attacking and finish the rest of your turn. This is a deck that kind of forces you to think about some things you wouldn't normally think about, like positioning and like attacking first and stuff like that. I do want to mention one card thing here. This particular list we have on stream does not have Elise in it, but most of the lists do have Elise in it. So you may want to put her in because we just naturally already have 10 mana cost worth of minions that we want to run anyway. Like, we're not running anything just for Elise. She definitely is worse than she used to be, but can still be flexible. The discovering a spell can be nice. The armor can be nice.
The plus attack is pretty critical in some matchups because you have the High King's Hammer. Right. So very often I'll prioritize taking +2 attack just because that's 4 extra damage when I swing with the hammer. And that can actually make the difference between a game or not. It is easy to forget that 2 attack does go on your face in addition to all of the creatures. But yeah, usually I'm looking at +2 attack, the Raptors, or discover a spell. And I'm usually taking a 5 mana location, though sometimes there are times when I'll take a 1 mana location, but typically it's 5 for at least in this deck.
Yeah, I just added an extra list into the show notes that does have Elise and cut a lightning storm for it, and also only has 1 Wailing Vapor that also has some good stats, although not as huge a sample size since the patch. Because that can be a good card in the deck as well. And let's see, what was...
And positioning, I think, is the other thing that you were kind of touching on, and that's pretty critical for this deck, because you want to be maximizing the damage you're getting out of the soldiers, and if you are not constantly thinking about positioning, you're going to miss damage, and you're also going to miss attacks. And missing attacks is almost worse than missing damage in this deck in the early game, because it's so important to get Murden's Last Stand discounted. So what you want to be thinking about is that the minions that spawn, that Herald Alakir, spawn to the right of where you place them. When you play Ritual of Power, it always spawns to the far right. That is important to think about. It's also important to think about where you're putting the Twilight Egg, because if you're looking at doing the thing where you're trading off a bunch of minions down the line and continually getting them the buff, the Twilight Egg will always break that, because it's going to summon another minion in the spot that it died. So you generally want to have the Twilight Egg on one edge or the other, and then you want to be planning for the Herald of the Ritual of Power to come in all the way on the right. Also remember that Herald Ritual of Power gives you those 2 elementals, the ones with rush. If you have 2 soldiers on board, you can place it between them and get extra attack, because it will get buffed on both sides. So there's a lot of really technical positioning that you need to do in a way that we really haven't had to do, gosh, I want to say since like Zoo Warlock. like when Warlock was running things like Dire Wolf Alpha, like years and years ago. I mean, I guess we may have had some Flame Tongue Totem decks lately, but not really to this extent.
Yeah, this is the first one in a long time where they sort of offensive, like your own positioning matters. We have had certain cards where like with cleave effects that you'd want to play around.
Yeah.
Like putting your taunts on either end so that they can't cleave them both. I can't remember which card it was that was doing that. But like Nomelia, for example. But this one, it really matters sort of your own positioning. This also, with the positioning, it can matter what order you're attacking in. Like if you are attacking down the line so each one gets a buff, or you place something in between two soldiers, you attack with that, it dies, now the soldiers are next to each other, now you attack with the soldiers, right? Or if you're going to have to trade off the soldiers, trade them last. Like there are little things like that. Yeah, in terms of rules of thumb, trade the soldiers last. I've been usually putting like Witches' Apprentices and Twilight Eggs on the far right, so that if I play a Ritual of Power, they get buffed. And then if I play like a Skywall Sentinel or an Envoy of the End, I play that just to the left of the 0 attack thing. Unless I have something else I want to buff, then I'll play it a little further. And if you have 2 soldiers, I've usually been kind of spreading them out. Like if I have a wide board, I spread out the soldiers, but they will also buff each other's attack if they're right next to each other. So sometimes that's correct to just have the 2 soldiers buffing each other if you're also planning to attack with them. Occasionally, I just won't attack. Like I'm more likely to send soldiers face than trade with them.
Yeah.
Especially if there's taunts up.
Yeah.
If they have a taunt, and I've gotten enough attacks for Murden's Last Stand anyway, I might just not attack with the soldier so that it stays alive. Especially because unless like, oh, this will kill their taunt and they're just going to trade off my soldier themselves anyway. So obviously everything is situation dependent, but there is a lot going on with this deck in terms of especially that early game positioning. Sometimes you can hit, if you're like 1 or 2 off a break point for a trade, think about like, is there any way I can get this? You know, like they have something they have like the Slither Drake with 8 health, and you've got like Ultraxian sitting there with 6. Be like, at this point, probably your heralds are giving +2/+2. Can I like position this so that I can cleanly trade off the Slither Drake? You know, if I'm close to a break point, sometimes you can jigger it and then it'll be successful. This adds a lot of like extra things to think about in the turn, so I definitely try to really plan out like the cards I'm gonna play during their turn. Luckily, we're not like high APMing on this usually, so that your turn by turn decisions are more focused a little bit on like, how am I attacking? How am I positioning? What order am I attacking in? That kind of thing. You do sometimes generate stuff or see what you draw from Flight of the Firehawk, see what you draw from Murden's Last Stand, but it's a lot more about that sort of like what's on the board decision making.
Yeah. I would say if you're struggling with this deck, slow down and really think about it every time that you go to play a minion. Because it is very easy to speed run that and shortcut the positioning because there are not a lot of decks that care to this extent. And it is a skill that is very useful long term. Like this is a very good deck to teach you really good fundamentals, but it is also very punishing if you are not paying attention to those. You will like just missing out on 1 or 2 attacks or missing out on a couple points of damage will be the difference between winning and losing. If you are not really paying attention to where your minions are spawning and where the soldiers are spawning and how much damage you're able to squeak out of them. A good player with this deck can maximize all that value from the soldiers, and if you're not really being deliberate, you can just end up just a little bit short a lot of the time.
Yeah. In terms of like mulligan and sort of flex cards or not, What you really want in the mull is Ritual of Power or Skywall Sentinel, your 2-mana heralds. Like, those are by far the highest mulligan impact. Twilight Egg is also very good. Wailing Vapor is also good, although not nearly as good, so I might not keep it. I would keep it if I had a Ritual of Power, certainly, or if I had a Skywall Sentinel already. I might not keep it by itself. Other things you mostly only want to keep situationally. So, like, Primordial Overseer is good if you have Static Shock, but otherwise you might want to toss it. Static Shock is good if you have Primordial Overseer.
Yeah.
Witch's Apprentice, I wouldn't probably keep by itself unless, again, I like already have a Skywall Sentinel or something, because it's a great play with Skywall Sentinel. But by itself, it's just a 0-mana 0/1 that may or may not give you something helpful.
And you'd rather draw it off of Flight of the Firehawk anyway, most of the time.
Something like Lightning Storm, it is dependent on the matchup. I would probably usually not keep that. Yeah, actually, that has a pretty low mulligan impact looking at archetype stats. Yeah. Definitely never keep the hammer. Right? We would much rather have Mirrodin draw the hammer than have the hammer in our hand.
And even Mirrodin, I don't think we're keeping either. Like, you're not keeping anything. No. You're not keeping anything that costs more than 3, I would say. Even more than 2, probably.
Yeah. Flight of the Firehawk actually has a slightly negative mulligan impact.
Yeah.
So, like, this is often true for high-level play. Like, I think, and I can still fall into this, but newer players tend to go for, well, this seems like a good enough hand. But you tend to get more percentages overall if you look for a good opening hand and not just an okay opening hand. So you really do. It really helps a lot to have those Herald 2-drops or Twilight Egg.
Yeah. There are probably some matches where keeping Hex is correct. Before the nerfs, it was sometimes Warrior, especially when the Recruit Warrior was really the most popular warrior that people were playing, because if you were able to get rid of a Yasandra or even a Dracorex sometimes, then that was pretty backbreaking for that deck. Now that deck's been nerfed, I don't know that we're going to see it as often. I do think that there probably will be some sort of a deck that comes along that has, I mean, I guess there probably will be an Egg deck. I did see an Egg Warrior today. I wouldn't keep it for Egg Warrior because I don't think that that's necessarily going to be the most prevalent warrior. But if there is an Egg deck that comes up, even if you think it might be an Egg deck, keeping the Hex in to be able to respond to them playing the Egg on 3 is pretty good. Even if they kill it once, you're still cutting off a lot of Umbra triggers with that Hex, so it's probably still worth it. But again, you would need to have a really good sense that they're running Eggs, and I don't know that there's any class that you'd be. Maybe Warlock, but nobody's playing Warlock anyway.
Yeah, I've been like, I think maybe I should cut one of the Hexes and put back Elise. I've been using Hex on just like big stuff, or Mirrodin if they happen to leave it up, but they usually don't. Just like things that are large get hexed. That's another ordering thing. You might want to attack first, then Hex, right? Because Hex does have taunt. Unless you have a small thing that you can run into the Hex, just like before you Hex, be like, do I need attacks to go through this, or can I clear it with something small? So that's another small, just take a second and think about that before you play it. Cards that are flexible here, I mean, we've talked about like having them in or out. The Wailing Vapor, the Primordial Overseer, 2 of, 1 of. The Hexes and the Lightning Storms, it can depend on what you're seeing. So, and depend on sort of how you're playing it. Remember with the Lightning Storms also, it's your only card that has Overload, but like it does have Overload, or Witch's Apprentice might give you something with Overload. So just as always with Shaman, before you play an Overload card, just take half a second and be like, is that gonna mess up my next turn? Right? Like, was I counting on playing, Ultraxion or Deathwing next turn? And now I have messed that up. So just Overload is good at teaching you mana planning habits, I will say.
Yes, from the school of Hard Knocks, yes.
From the School of Hard Knocks, exactly. So, yeah, I mean, overall, this is like... my games with this have mostly... It is a somewhat... It's not a slow deck by any means, but maybe like a late-ish mid-game to late-game deck. It's got a lot of pressure. It is, board-based. But it also has a lot of inevitability, and I've usually won by kind of ramping into my later game. It looks like games that I have won with this deck today, yeah, they were actually all slow. I won with 12 turns, 10 turns, 15 turns. That was a game. 13 turns and 10 turns again. And most of the time when I had fewer games, those were the ones I was more likely to lose. I have won with Shaman with there is one here that I won with 5 turns, one that I won with 7. But this is often a deck that's going a little bit later. So if you like decks that kind of have some board-based gameplay early, but then have really big inevitability later, then this could be a good option for you. What even happened with this 15-turn priest game? And now I have to look. Oh yeah,
did you just fall asleep for 3 or 4 turns, or what happened there?
They were playing kind of an interesting thing with Deos and Tyrande, but then they ended up having to kind of waste their Tyrande doubled spells in order to not die. They played Deos out when they thought, oh, if I tempo this out, it'll be really great, and they won't be able to kill him, but I did, so that was unfortunate for them. And then they just took a while. They were waiting for me to play Alec here before they Medivhed, but I just made them wait a really long time for that. And at that point, they were already at 5 health, so then they just died. By the time I finally... And that one, I actually, held back the 10 drops that Alec here gave me, because just in case they healed back and cleared my board with Medivh, I would have another big board right after it. One thing that I've noticed about Deathwing is really very strong and can clear a board. Right, he's essentially do 4 damage AoE and kill one big thing. The shuffle the dragons into your deck, sometimes you do want that. I imagine if you're going really long versus a Herald Decay or something, you really do want that. But sometimes I've almost been I almost wish I played Deathwing when I only got 2 Cataclysms, because I want to draw my own cards. But often it is good. And having a 12-tailed dragon is usually a good thing. So I think one can generally agree on that. But there has been a game or two I had today where I there's been games where I drew the 1-cost dragons and they were excellent and they were what I wanted. And then there's been the occasional 1-cost dragon draw where I'm but I did not want this. I wanted a card in my deck. That's a first world problem, though. Oh no, I drew a 1-cost dragon instead of the card in my deck. So.
Oh no, my discount dragons are not dragony enough. Whatever will I do?
Yeah. Kind of the low roll is the priest one that Eternus take control of an enemy minion with this minion's health or less.
Yeah.
I haven't gotten the Alexstrasza yet.
Yeah, Alexstrasza would
sure
probably
she's
be
in
pretty
there.
bad too. Yeah.
Yeah, that would actually be an even worse low roll. Now that I think about it. Because we don't, unless maybe you're running Healing Rain, but the stats are not very good on Healing Rain.
Or if you're at 5 life and you just got to heal 10, that might be fine too. I don't know. That's
true. If you're under 15, then it is original Alex when we used her to heal every once in a while. I remember doing that. I also remember trying to put them to 15 and then do inner fire things. One time, I actually told my husband about this recently, is when we used to work together at his nonprofit, and we went to a makerspace convention, Maker Fair or something. It's bothering me that I can't remember what it's called, but it was a really big sort of maker convention, and we were there for 2 days, and first day went well, and then I can't remember where it was, but I it was not within driving distance of where I live, so I had a hotel room, and I stayed up the entire night. I will say in my defense, I was 19 when this happened. I stayed up the entire night playing Inner Fire Priest. Did not win until the early morning.
That was your first mistake, honestly.
Yeah. And I was playing some awful homebrew version of it, too. I won at like 4 a.m. and then realized I was supposed to be up in like an hour and a half. And I had not slept. So I managed, my husband didn't know this until I told him. He was like, oh, you just seemed a little out of it, if I recall. Like, he didn't really remember. But I was like dying the whole next day. To be young and be able to do an all-nighter. Really cannot imagine how that would possibly work anymore.
I mean, I don't know, because I had 3 kids who all crashed out at PAX East at 3 p.m. on Saturday. So I don't know. Maybe youth is wasted on the young. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. And I mean, I don't have any small children or anything like that, but that would definitely change my sleep rhythms. As it is, like the past 3-4 years has been like the first time in my life that I like regularly get 8 hours of sleep, and it turns out all those annoying people were right, and it really is good.
Yeah.
Darn it.
Yeah, I still haven't accepted that into my life, so, you know.
I was like, all right, it really does help. Same with like eating well. When I eat well, it really does help, and it's like, darn it, but I would rather eat bad stuff. Yeah. So, or like when flossing your teeth. It actually really does help when you go to the dentist. Gosh darn it. So
what we've learned is that good oral hygiene will help you win with Herald Shaman.
Yes. Not that it's getting late and Megasa has gone completely off the rails.
All right. So that being the case, I guess then we have many folks we'd like to thank. Check out the thanks section on our website at Concede.com, where you can also find our contact info, our show notes, and our Patreon information. You can monetarily support our show at patreon.com/CoinConcede, where you can get pre and post show content, exclusive patron-only mailbag episodes, and much, much more. You can join us every week live by following us on Twitch at twitch.coinconcede.com. You can join our community chats on our Discord at discord.coinconcede.com. Write into our email at coinconcede@gmail.com. Follow us on Blue Sky at CoinConcede. Subscribe to us on YouTube at youtube.com/@CoinConcede. And if you would like some CC swag, head on over to our shop. The link is in the show notes. So, Megasa, Coin Concedes.
Coin Concedes. Well, first, I do want to add one small thing to my previous thing, which is that even though I know that eating well makes me feel better, I still have a lot of sweets. I eat well with the rest of it, but like, my mom would be horrified if she knew how many sweets that I have in a week, like, or in a day even. But let's see. Coin Concedes. Well, I will coin concede to the 2 teachers who sit on either side of me. Because I'm in a weird school, right, where we teach one-on-one, we kind of have like little cubicles with like glass walls that I use as my whiteboard instead of like classrooms, because there's just one teacher and one student. But because they're little cubicles, you can hear what's going on in the classes next to you. And so the 2 teachers on either side of me, right, I can often hear their classes, they can hear mine, and we have a lot of the same students for different classes, and it's fun to kind of hear what they're doing with them. We also have one student in particular who is quite the contrarian and likes to get into off-topic debates about things. And so we'll be like trading tips, or like he'll have had one of us earlier in the day and then come in, and then I'll be like, so I overheard you talking with so-and-so about this. And they have my back in this with this student and students in general. So yeah. And also when we had a different student who he and his friend happened to be next to each other, which actually admin ended up changing their schedules around a little bit so that this wouldn't happen, because they absolutely could not stop just talking to each other and poking each other instead of being in class. But we've sort of worked together to like rearrange to like put the student on the inside of the cubicle instead of us and stuff, so they at least couldn't like see each other. And we were totally honest with them about why. It was like, hey, glad you have your friend. We're supposed to be talking about science for the next 50 minutes. Like, we can do it. But yeah, and we're about to have spring break, so I hope they and all my other coworkers, students, and everyone else out there who might, I mean, different states and places have different weeks for spring break, but we're about to have spring break for next week.
Ours
So,
in
happy
Massachusetts
spring
is
break.
until like the end of April because we have Patriots Day, which is a made up Massachusetts holiday on the third Monday of it's actually just the day of the Boston Marathon. That's what it is.
I see.
I don't know if it is a holiday because of the Boston Marathon or they decided to hold the Boston Marathon on this made up holiday, but it is the third Monday of April, and then that's when school vacation is. So
Yeah.
So
Oh, that must make March and April kind of brutal because there's just nothing breaking that up.
yeah, pretty much. Well, we have snow days.
That's true. We do not have snow days.
Right. So that does kind of break it up. You just can't plan for it. It just kind of happens. So at least in February, maybe no, we got snow in March this year. So I don't know. Yeah.
Meanwhile, in California, I had to bring out the AC in like early March because it was record-breaking highs. Now it's cooler again. Then it rained a little bit. Now it's warm again. Weather in California, just like I really can't complain because we have overall excellent weather here. It doesn't snow. It's not humid. There's no hurricanes. That's a plus, for sure. But it does tend to not make up its mind a lot.
Yeah.
So.
Well, I guess I will coin concede to the Hearthstone team for the Deathwing hoodie because that was actually what I ended up wearing to PAX on Friday. Because it is, speaking of weather, it is the time of year when it is like 30 degrees in the morning and 60 degrees in the afternoon, and it is impossible to figure out how to dress. And I didn't want to end up having to check my coat at PAX if I could help it. So I ended up just wearing the hoodie, and the hoodie was warm enough then and just slightly too warm once it got warm later, but then I was okay and I could take it off. I didn't, but I could have.
Nice.
And I will, of course, coin concede on behalf of both of us to Edelweiss. So hopefully she gets better soon. Mostly it's that whatever she was under the weather with, and she's got a small kid, so the kids bring everything home from everywhere. But also her voice was starting to go, and she has to cast championships next week. So we did not want I don't know that we encouraged her, but we told her we would be fine if she didn't want to be on the show this week because we didn't want to risk her voice for casting next weekend, which is much more important. We will be happy to welcome her back with open arms whenever she is feeling better. But casting next weekend is the priority. So we want to make sure that she is healthy for that. I'm also going to coin concede to you, Megasa, for helping out with the show notes and whatnot this week because Passover wrecked my schedule. And like I conked out at like 10 o'clock last night. I just came home and like completely fell asleep. So yeah, I appreciated the assist there with helping with the show notes and filling that in so that because I did not have much time between all my meetings and then Passover Seders and everything else. So but that is going to do it for us for this week. So until next time, keep calm and think before you place your minions. And if you see us on ladder, coin concede.
Coin concede.
All life must end. I yield for now. I concede. Well fought. I concede.
You win this one.
The victory is yours.
You have bested me.
I give up.
You win this one, friend.